I would love to make this a 10 or 15 minute review, but honestly, I don't know if there was enough action in this episode for me to even fill that if I was just to stream the episode for you. But I'll see what I can do. The Walking Dead Season 10 finale. We waited about 6 months or so for us to see this episode. Did it live up to the hype? Well, that's a complicated question. I think there was a lot of promises made by that final epic shot that we got in the penultimate episode of the season, and we waited 6 months to see what was going to happen in that conflict. Beta was leading the horde up towards the tower where our heroes had gathered and were on lockdown. There was a lot of walkers banging down the door, or at least approaching it, and I was expecting a big knockdown, drag-out brawl with the Whisperers. Did we get that? A little bit. We got a little bit of it. I'm going to try and stick as spoiler-free in the beginning as possible. I will let you know when I'm going to dive into spoilers. I'm going to leave it more spoiler-free than spoilers in this review because I do want you guys to watch the episode. If you are somebody who has watched the episode and you're coming in to kind of, get my thoughts and see if they line up with yours, then there will be some spoiler stuff towards the end. In terms of my overall thoughts of the episode, I thought it was a little lackluster. Even by the last couple of years' standards of The Walking Dead. Usually their penultimate episodes are action-packed and a lot of stuff happens there, and then it's kind of wrapped up in the finale. But this time, there wasn't a ton in the penultimate episode. I mean, it was okay. You had the introduction of Princess, which I thought was a little bit of an unnecessary detour. I can kind of see why the character was introduced because we do need that energy. We kind of need a character that's got a little bit of life to her when, as of now, most of our main characters are pretty dour most of the time. They're kind of Debbie Downers, pretty much all of them. There's not a ton of optimism going around. There's not a ton of, there's some jokes getting cracked here and there. Eugene's got some good lines, and there's a little bit going on, but somebody who's just like a bundle of energy like Princess, that's something that's going to be interesting to shake up the dynamics of the group that we've started to get used to. But in that episode, there was not a ton of action outside of the little scene with the minefield, and I thought that was a little bit of a kind of a time waster. And beyond that, wasn't a ton. There was a couple of character moments with Negan. There was a little bit between Daryl and Judith, but beyond that, there wasn't what you would expect out of a penultimate episode. Going into the finale with that final scene when Beta was leading the horde up towards the front of the tower, that was something that would cause anxiety and it had you on the edge of your seat waiting to see what was going to happen. But in this episode, I feel like it didn't really live up to that. We didn't see a ton of struggle for the people that are inside the tower. And this might, dip a little bit into light spoilers, but not very much. But we didn't really get to see a lot of the main characters that we, know and love that were at threat kind of participate in a lot. We got a little bit from Gabriel. We got some from Carol. We got a little bit from Daryl. But there wasn't really a ton there. I felt like the episode took a lot of time to build up towards what was going to happen. And I was kind of watching the clock, 30-minute mark rolls around, the 40-minute mark rolls around. Then we finally get some action around the 45-minute mark. And was it a little bit too little too late? Possibly. We had kind of some conclusions to things that I thought were a little anticlimactic, and it was just kind of tied up really quickly and pretty neatly. Definitely by the standards that has been set by Walking Dead. Walking Dead's kind of been on a decline for a while now, and their impact of their episodes has kind of lowered over time, but there has been some really good ones, some really good finales, even in the last couple of seasons, some great mid-season finales, some penultimate episodes, but I don't know if this one really lived up to it. And it kind of definitely seemed more like a, third from last kind of episode. Maybe it was like that kind of a tone. Obviously, we tied some things up. We had to wrap up some things and bring it to at least some sort of a conclusion. That was kind of the requirement of a finale, but there wasn't much more than that. I'm going to go a little bit into spoilers now. Actually, not a little bit. I'm going to go straight into spoilers. So I am warning you now, if you have not seen the episode, definitely go check it out. Come back, watch the other half of this video. But if you have seen the episode and you're just looking to get my thoughts, welcome, and you're in for the long haul. Because the big thing, Maggie is back. We saw Maggie for the last time when she was going off to be with that other community where she was going to learn about the ways to save the world, up and coming, all that stuff that she wanted to do. And it was a little bit of an abrupt leave of the show for the character, at least. Kind of, I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere, but I thought it was very abrupt. And it was kind of like, well, Maggie's gone now. But people watching the show and who are keeping up with the news and the stories surrounding it knew that Lauren Cohen's contract was up after a certain amount of episodes. I think it was 6 episodes in that season. So we knew that she was going. A lot of people thought she was going to die, and I could definitely see that. That's the way that normally Walking Dead actors kind of leave the show, is by dying. But by leaving it the way that they did, it definitely left the impression that the show was planning on bringing her back at some point. And I think it's really good to have her come back now in a Walking Dead without Rick and a Walking Dead without Michonne, and with kind of your only OG pillars being Daryl and Carol really at this point. That's really your source of leadership. You get a little bit from Gabriel, but Gabriel's not one of the kind of OG cast. And though Maggie is not original cast, she's about as original as you can get without being in that core 6 episodes cast, because she was really growing into her own. She was taking a leadership position. She was getting to that point where she wasn't taking any crap from anybody, and she was starting to lead her community the way that it needed to be led. And just as we were getting Maggie at that point where she was peak leadership, she was off the show. And then it was a little bit of a power vacuum for a while. We had Michonne taking charge after the time jump a lot, but I don't think Michonne was ever really comfortable in that position. I don't think us as fans really saw her as comfortable in that position. And now that Michonne's gone, it kind of slid down to Gabriel was the de facto leader and Ezekiel was the de facto leader, but Ezekiel had kind of fallen a little bit. And I absolutely love Ezekiel, but I don't think Ezekiel needs to be in that leadership position anymore. That's something that I think has moved past him. He's no longer King Ezekiel, and I think that he is good in what he's doing. He gives great speeches. I love the inspiring words. He has some good one-liners. He had it is not ideal, the line from the penultimate episode that I really enjoyed when he was talking to Princess in the minefield. I love Ezekiel as a character, and I'm glad that it wasn't his head that ended up on a pike. Spoilers for the comics, but it was his head instead of Henry's head in the comics that ended up on that pike by the Whisperers. And I was really glad that that didn't happen in the show, because I really like Ezekiel. But Ezekiel is not a Maggie character, not a Rick Grimes character. He was never going to step into that role. And neither is Carol, and neither is Daryl. So having those characters be the ones that are left, you needed that strong leadership. And having Maggie back now with her like ninja buddy that came with her, that's going to be really cool to see. It was really cool having her see Judith again and being able to kind of mingle with the cast. Beyond that, let's talk a little bit more about what I thought about the episode in more detail now that we're in the spoiler section. I thought the actual final conflict with Beta, I'm so gobsmacked by it, was so anticlimactic that it bothered me. I don't understand why we couldn't get some kind of fight. When Beta saw Negan across the way and threw the zombie at him, and he was going to stab him, and then Daryl just finishes him off in one move. I thought we were going to get like a cool 3-way fight with the two of them, or originally I thought it was just going to be him versus Negan, and Negan was going to have his triumphant moment. And we ended up with Negan just getting saved by Daryl, which I guess is good character building, because Daryl did kind of save Negan there and kind of treat him as an ally when there's like this back and forth with him, but we definitely should have gotten more. Beta was built up so much, and he took on Daryl that first time in a really knockdown, drag out brawl. I don't understand why we couldn't have gotten something like that. There was a little bit of action in this episode, but not enough really to justify this weight. The weight of 6 months. I know that wasn't on them, and there was definitely not, this was not planned by them, where it was going to be a 6-month wait in between the penultimate episode and the finale, but having to wait this long for something that was built up, and this, final conflict with the Whisperers, it was built up over this whole time, and it was a letdown in most aspects of it. I did kind of appreciate what we saw of the main crew sneaking through the walkers and taking out the Whisperers one at a time. That was kind of cool. We didn't see enough of it though, because as soon as that was kind of noticed, we immediately went into the Beta fight, and that was what we just were talking about, but we didn't see enough of that. But that was kind of a cool concept. I would have liked to see Beta kind of looking around and seeing a lot of his people starting to fall, and seeing like them kind of take the role of the Whisperers away from them. That would have been really cool. I did like seeing some leadership from Gabriel. I liked the little speech that he gave in the beginning of the episode to the little girl, talking with the hands and saying that it was like Oceanside and Alexandria and all of them with the different fingers, and then it was the others that aren't here right now. And that was kind of a little bit of foreshadowing, because it's not really foreshadowing, because they showed Maggie in that sequence where she found the letter, and I thought that was kind of cool to see it from him. I really wish I could have seen a little bit more out of him when he, had that shotgun ready and he shoots one guy and then he's just immediately like done. I thought we could have seen a little bit more of that like kind of alpha Gabriel that we were starting to see towards the beginning of the season and through the middle of the season and last season, I guess. But we didn't really see a lot of that. I didn't appreciate that some of the threads that were kind of brought up in the penultimate episode were just dropped. Like, they got the bikes, and then we cut to the bikes, and the bike's broken, and we didn't even get, that was just kind of where we picked up. And then they had captured Aaron, and honestly can't remember the other guy's name, but the former Negan guy, and they were scouting, and they captured them, and then all of a sudden they're just like fighting them off, but it didn't look like they were in a position in the last episode for them to actually fight them off. So I don't know where that kind of came from. That was all in like the opening montage sequence. And then we had the moment towards the end where I thought it was a little over dramatic with Carol. I guess she's weighed down by guilt, and we keep seeing this stuff back and forth. Daryl's kind of putting himself out there like, hey, you have me, and she just keeps like blowing him off. But then she's going to sacrifice herself to lead the Horde into the cliff. And I thought it was a little, I liked how it was shot. I liked kind of it going back and forth from her perspective to looking at the cliff to that long shot. It was nicely done from that perspective, and I can see the development of her getting pulled away and that kind of bond that's happening there. I would have rather seen it the other way around, kind of. I would have rather her be the one to do the saving and kind of seen it stand up like that. I don't know. I do want to see something out of Carol. Carol seems to kind of be flopping back and forth between like, I'm super depressed, or I'm guilty, or I'm like irrationally violent. Like, we're kind of just swinging back and forth. I kind of want to see a little bit of, I don't know, something out of her. I can't even put on words on what I'm looking for out of it, but I want to see something. The last shot, let's go into that last scene where Eugene and the crew, Ezekiel and Yumiko and Princess, finally make it to the train station, and they're going to meet Stephanie, and the lights come on, and we see soldiers come out, and the soldiers are wearing those almost like stormtrooper outfits. And the immediate thing that pointed in my brain was the Commonwealth. Has to be the Commonwealth. That's what the soldiers look like, which means that is probably what we're going to get as our major story arc through the last supersized season that we're getting of The Walking Dead. I was assuming that we were going to get there eventually. I kind of thought the Commonwealth was what was getting teased with that woman who was talking to Maggie with the records. I thought that was kind of, because she kind of looked like the one from the comics, and I feel like we're definitely going towards that direction. So we have hit a lot of the major beats in the comics now. We've hit the Whisperers, which people were excited to get to when they debuted, and now we are going to the Commonwealth. And that is going to be really interesting to see brought to the silver screen and off of the page. And as much as I thought this final episode was a little bit of a letdown, I am excited to see what they're going to do with the Commonwealth, and I'm excited to see what this last supersized season is going to bring us. We're going to get 24 episodes. It's a lot for The Walking Dead. So it's going to be spread over a little while. So it's basically like we're getting 2 regular-sized seasons, because I'm sure the mid-season finale is going to be like a season finale. It's basically going to be like 2 seasons, but it's 1 season, apparently. So I am very excited to see what they do with it. And this year I am going to be reviewing World Beyond, the new spin-off show for The Walking Dead. And I'm going to be reviewing Fear the Walking Dead, which is premiering next week. The World Beyond video should already be up on the channel. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. I'm also tossing around the idea of potentially reviewing those last, I think, 8 episodes of Supernatural. That's a show that's really dear to me, and it's been on for 15 years, and I feel like I should review it, at least in its last few episodes. So I'm probably going to be doing that, so look out for that. If you like what I'm going to be doing on the channel, definitely give me a thumbs up. I love those likes. Comment down below. What do you think about The Walking Dead right now? Are you excited for the Commonwealth? Are you excited for World Beyond? What do you think? What do you think of the episode? Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you know what's up, and I'll catch you in the next episode, guys.